So this video is for all of you who don't really know me on a deep level, don't really know my backstory, don't really know the real me. You know surface level, you know little bits of me, but you don't really know who I actually am. So my name's Eugene, and when I was born with something called polycythemia. That's doctoral terms for very thick blood and a traumatic brain bleed. Blood was not flowing to my brain properly. That ended up resulting in a traumatic brain injury, TBI. And that ended up giving me lifelong epilepsy, as far as I know. As I said, could go away at any time. And I could always overcome that. But from what I was told by the doctors and stuff, which I believed and was drilled into me at a very young age, that it was going to be there forever. I was told impulse control was going to be a problem for me my entire life. I was told I have autism, high functioning autism, which is kind of surprising considering most people with autism have such bad communication skills. They cannot communicate. They're very quiet and very sensitive, and they don't really know how to socialize with people, which I may struggle some bit with social cues, and I may struggle with social normalities at times, but I'm so good at verbal communication. It is hard for a lot of people who've come into my life to actually believe, accept, and work with the fact that I actually have autism because of that. So that has impacted my life in massive ways. I've lost tons of people. I've only had about probably 2 people my entire life who have actually stayed around and actually truly understood me. One of them was a friend who unfortunately has now moved on. He's in a better place. He ended up dying due to a tragic freak accident at work. At least the way I look at it is he at least went out doing what he loved. And just the only other people really, as I said, in my life who've really understood me are my parents. Everybody else seems to have pretty much, they've told me the truth. They've told me what I need to do to get into a better place, but they gave me very surface level, very broad answers, right? And I would ask for very specific directions. They would then tell me, oh, you asked too many questions. You overanalyze everything. You over this. But the thing is they don't understand, and they've never understood that is the way the ADHD mind works. And I finally had a call with somebody the other day that really gave me some perspective. And they said, you need structure in your life. Do you not have structure? And then it got me thinking back to when I was little and when I was in school. And I did well in school. I struggled with peers. The only 2 type of people that would actually accept me in all the way through, elementary school, all the way through high school were the teachers and the losers. And I think the teachers had a lot of compassion for me because they understood through, the physical diagnosis documentation that they were handed, me being on an IEP, or individualized educational program plan, all these other things. They actually understood me, right? Based off of that. So they had more compassion for me. Now my peers, the only people who, as I said, really understood me at the time were, even throughout, as I said, all the way through high school, which I think really molded me as a person, were the negative people, the people who are going down the wrong path in life. Out of my entire friend circle in high school, all the way from junior high to high school, I've lost multiple friends at that time. And not all people are meant to stay in our life, right? But I've lost almost everybody because I realized there was a lot of things that I was doing that I didn't even know subconsciously were even socially inappropriate, or socially abnormal. And nobody would ever be open. I would tell them, it's like, look, I have this. I have autism. I have these things. But it would be hard for them because I'm such a good communicator, because I'm so in tune with my verbal language skills, that it would be hard for them to actually relate. It'd be hard for them to understand. It's not like you see somebody with Down syndrome. It's like you can instantly tell. It's like, okay, they're not there. So it's a blessing being able to communicate and have such a skill of being able to communicate so well with people and being able to empathize and connect with people on such a level. But at the same time, it's been a little bit of a curse at the same time because people overestimate your capabilities. So that has affected me my entire life. So when I was 11, I ended up starting a tea business, and that was my passion. That was my drive. I did that for 6 years, and I would do that night and day. I was so passionate about it, it wasn't even funny. Like, I would wake up in the morning, start making tea. I would go to school, do my career activity, or not my career activities, but school activities. But I would also do extracurricular activities. Like, I would do skiing. I was on the Nordic ski team in high school, late junior high and high school, until 11th grade. And that's about the same time, actually, ironically, when the tea business stopped, because I hit a point where I needed funding in order to scale. And I was too young to get a loan. And my parents told me multiple times, you should look into getting a grant, but you need to put in a lot of work. You need to type up essays and stuff. And I had no interest at the time, to be frank, of typing up a giant business plan, creating a multi-structured step-by-step plan. This was back in 2015, 16, keep in mind. 2014 even. So I had no plan of creating a business plan. None of that. No desire to. Right? The reason I started the tea business in the first place was I just was so social. I loved connecting with people. I loved handing out free samples, and I loved seeing smiling faces. And it turned into people buying from me. At one point, I was making close to $2,000 a week, maybe a little less, from selling tea. Gross, keep in mind, that's gross profit, right? So that's total business profit. I was probably walking away with about $600 profit every week, which is still, for, age 11 to 15, 17 is pretty darn good if you really think about it. But it really led me down after that kind of ended. I kind of started going down a wrong path. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. As I said, the wrong people started infiltrating my life slowly but surely. And as I said, the only people who really accepted me were the people who were the, quotes, loser crowd, right? People who would smoke, do illegal activities, breaking the law, things of that nature, right? So I started hanging out with them, totally clueless that that's the kind of people they were. I just thought, okay, well, they're accepting me. They're the only people who are really accepting me, other than adults, which are like, 40-year-olds and stuff. And it's like, I'm over here 17. It's weird to be hanging out with 40-year-olds. Like, even though I got along with them, don't get me wrong, I always seem to attract people who are either younger than me or less mature than me, or extreme levels of over mature, way more mature than me, which, looking back, I kind of wish I had hung out with people who were way older than me, even though I was like way younger, even though I was not even an adult legally at that point, right? You know what I'm saying? Even just being able to hang out with these people, right? But because of that, I digress. After that, and after the tea business kind of shutting down, I got into online marketing, online sales. I got coerced into the marketing space, promised a whole bunch of hype, hopes, and dreams and stuff. And I found myself jumping from company to company to company, not knowing who I was, not knowing what business I was supposed to be doing, learning a lot of stuff. And I then started getting into personal development, which, don't get me wrong, that was great. And it really brought a lot of inspiration to me. It was a lot of hype. It was a lot of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I learned a lot about myself, right? I learned a lot about my past traumas. I learned a lot about stuff going on in my life. But what I realize now is I've always been afraid to open up, even until today, about who I really was. I was afraid people would not be able to relate to me because of this autism, because of the ADHD. And I mean, ADHD now is one of those terms that's like, oh, everyone has it. I have ADHD because I drink too much coffee in the day. You know what I'm saying? It's like everyone has it now, which I think is absolutely hilarious because, and it's becoming more and more common because of all the steroids and the bad diets and everything that we eat in our daily economy that, the Fed and the government is pumping into our food system, right? And our food supply chains, right? But I digress on that. But I really feel like up until now, I've really not been very comfortable discussing things like that and being open with people and making that who I really am. So from this moment on, I'm going to be talking more about that, the awareness around that, how it's impacted my life, hopefully how it can, even if you don't have it, how I can maybe help people understand it so that way they can have more respect, more ability to appreciate, and not judge people who have high functioning autism, or these quotes, diverse abilities is what they're calling them now. Whatever you want to term it, the terminology is kind of pointless. But the fact is people with high functioning autism, people with these quotes disabilities or diverse abilities, whatever, as I said, you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. Now, there are some challenges alongside that come with that, but there's also some extreme gifts. And the thing is I feel like people, a lot of your quotes, normal people. By normal people, I think we all have, to some degree, some kind of either trauma, we have depression, we have anxiety, we have something, or we have a form of multitudes of different things, right? Through our past childhood, kind of what we were raised with, what we experienced as a child, teenager, and like, young adult, kind of all impacts to who we become as an adult, right? Let's be real. So I guess I kind of wanted to just hop on, kind of explain my story a little bit and maybe bring some clarity to the fact that, things like that, I want to break the stereotype of this negative assumption and negative association to these quotes, disabilities or diverse abilities. Because the thing is just because somebody has autism and ADHD doesn't mean they're less capable or they're less able or they're completely clueless and they're socially unacceptable. And there are all these things that we want to diagnose and label and term people as. Sometimes it's something as simple as being a true friend and showing up for people with this is just helping them, being more compassionate, being more observant. Because in the end, let's be real, the whole reason we show up into somebody else's life is to provide and give from a space of non-expectation to receive something back, right? So if you're coming into somebody's life, whether they have a diverse ability or even just they're a normal person, if you come into that person's life not knowing their backstory, not judging when they do something wrong, instead of judging what they do wrong that might or may not be socially acceptable, for example, let's say they mess up, right? Let's say they do something that, you view as morally unacceptable, right? Instead of just judging them and hold that, in your heart as a weight, get it off your chest and tell them. For an example, me, if I mess up and I do a move that looks totally socially unacceptable to you, I would rather, the thing is so many people, they don't want to hurt people's feelings. So they butter it up. They're like, oh, you just need to learn a few more things and you'll be fine eventually. Or, they sweep it under the rug. And that almost annoys me more than you coming to me and being like, yo, Eugene, this is what you did. This is how you made me feel when you did it. Because the thing is we just assume. We assume, oh, that person's just an asshole. They wanted to take advantage of me. They wanted to take more from the relationship than they did. They're so greedy and selfish. They're this, they're that, right? I've had that happen to me where people literally look at my actions and over time, they don't even try to make me aware of what happens. They just are light to me. They butter things up. They sugarcoat things. They're not open about things. I'd rather somebody come to me and say, hey, yo, Eugene, you did this. This is why it made me feel the way it made me feel. And this is what you can do to fix it. I would be like, at first, I would be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that I even did that. Because 90% of the time, for me at least, I can't say for other people, but for me at least, if I do something that's socially unacceptable or socially not normal, quotes, whatever you want to look at it as, however you perceive it, or is not okay, 90% of the time, the thing about autistic people, our hearts are so big but we're so clueless sometimes. And it's not that we're intentionally clueless. It's just, we don't learn things. And like for me personally, I was so behind when I was in like elementary school. I couldn't focus on learning social cues. 6th grade was the first time I was able to kick a soccer ball back to you and play pass with you. Give you some perspective. So I was so behind. I was so focused on learning my academic skills that I was learning all the skill sets of social communication that 90% of my peers learned in kindergarten, in junior high, and high school. That's how it was for me. That's why I had no friends that were solid, committed, and I'm still learning those lessons. It's not the fact that I'm a bad person or that I'm horrible or I'm trying to mess with people's lives. I'm just so far behind because of these setbacks in life that I need that person, or I need those people to point out my mistakes to me and make me aware, because it's literal, a simple something as lack of awareness. Cluelessness, you want to call it. I wasn't shown yet that thing that I did that was perceived as wrong was actually even wrong. I didn't even know. So I need somebody to come in and say, hey, you screwed up here, and this is why, and this is how you made me feel. And if you do that with me, I'll be like, oh, crap, okay. I'll do my best to not repeat that mistake ever again. You got it, right? And to the best of my ability, I will, right? But the thing is we got it in order, and I'm not the only one who's probably dealing with this or has gone through this or experienced this, right? So if you're going through this, you're experiencing this from other people in your life, or you've witnessed people do things that are completely like normally, quotes, socially unacceptable or something, before you go to judge, before you dump them off your friend list, before you exclude them out of your life, kick them out, think they're a bad person, or just come to conclusions about them as who they are because of their repeated mistakes, instead of judging them and just being soft to them, approach it from the aspect of, is there something maybe I don't know about this person, or I'm misunderstanding or assuming about this person as to who they are, how they are, why they are? Or should I maybe go out of my way to do some research? Or should I maybe go out of my way to try to understand this person, how they work, why they work the way they do, and how I can help them? Because a true friend in the end is going to show up for you and is going to try to help you, guide you, be there for you, and assist you where your struggles are. Even though you might hurt hearing the truth occasionally from them, a true friend, somebody who's really there for you and who truly has your back, isn't going to sugarcoat shit. Pardon my language. They're going to be blunt about things. When you mess up, and they'll tell you why. And like for me, as I said personally, somebody with, I can't speak for anybody and everybody else who has this, but people who have high functioning autism, for example, it's best if we hear what we've done wrong, why it's wrong, and how we made you feel. Because if we know how we made you feel, we have an association in our brain of, oh, this is why it's not good, right? This is why it's not a good thing to do. And, or even if it's, oh, you made me feel this way, oh, and it could be potentially, let's say it's something legal related, right? You'd be like, oh, by the way, you realize that's illegal, right? Oh, no. Half the time we're clueless. We didn't even know that it was, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. And we don't think about these things. We're so unaware and we're uneducated. Society hasn't really taught us these things because it's just assumed in society is like, oh, when you're in elementary school, you learn, you give Sally a certain look and she gives you a dirty look back, or you say something to her and she gives you a dirty look back. That's just subconsciously like you pick up those little signs when you're little. But as you get older, it's just assumed that you know these things, right? And somebody with like a, specialist, like abilities, so-called, or disabilities, whatever you want to call it, as I said, we don't know these things, right? We weren't taught these things because we were focused on other areas of our life and making ourselves successful and fluent in other areas of our life when we were younger, because our brains work differently. So we needed to focus on one thing at a time in order to master that one thing, versus being able to focus on multiple things at once. We needed focus and structure, right? And that didn't allow us to focus on our personal life and our social communication skills, which is, as I said, partly why I'm struggling now to build those skills, which is why I'm focusing on those things. Because when I was in elementary school, junior high, high school, I was so focused on my academics, I wasn't able to focus on skill sets of socialization, because my brain wouldn't allow me to focus on those things. In order for me to become fluent in like math, science, reading, those kinds of things, my brain wouldn't allow me to focus on them, because I couldn't focus on two things and learn to do things simultaneously, successfully. Like, I can do two things at once. But if I do two things or three things at once, you're going to lose me on three, and I'm going to half-ass the other two. You give me one task to do, and you tell me A to Z, even the little breakdowns of those, I'm going to master that task and I'm going to crush it, right? That's the way we work. And it's the same thing with social skills. It's the same thing with business tasks, job tasks. We need structure, right? And so many people are so uninformed about people like us. And I know I'm not the only one out there who's experiencing this, who's been there. But because I personally have been given the God-given gift of being able to have such good communication about this stuff, I want to help bring awareness to people about it. Because people deserve to know the truth. People deserve to know the answers. And people deserve to know the reality of what they're actually dealing with. Thank you, guys. I hope you got some value. I hope you learned something about people like me and people with, these, quotes, diverse abilities or disabilities, whatever you want to call them. As I said, quotes, terminology doesn't really matter. The fact is, we got what we got, right? And so I wanted to, as I said, to help bring more awareness. If you like this video, please give it a like and a subscribe. Please follow me. Please share this video if you think it will help somebody, bring awareness to somebody. And I hope to see you guys in the next videos.